These days, ultra-processed foods are everywhere, including in the news. And the problem with trying to avoid them completely is that it feels impossible, especially if you are a busy parent. But here's the good news. You might not need to avoid them all. There is some new research beginning to shed light on the different qualities and impact that certain kinds of ultra-processed foods have over others. And I want to talk about those today. Hi, I'm Kiyah Duffey, nutrition expert, entrepreneur, speaker, and mom of 3. I help busy, health-conscious parents transform their family's relationship with food. What I want to talk about today is a study that was reported on this past week in the Wall Street Journal, and reporting on a study that is being conducted by researchers at the National Institutes of Health. The aim of this study is to really understand the extent to which different types of ultra-processed foods impact health and how specifically they do that. Today, I want to talk about what that can mean for you and your family's health and how we can use this information to make better choices in our own day-to-day eating. But first, let's talk for a second about what an ultra-processed food is. So an ultra-processed food is a food that has been significantly altered from its original state. These foods often contain ingredients like added sugar, added salt, and or different kinds and especially of unhealthy fats. And they also contain things like artificial colors, artificial sweeteners, emulsifiers, preservatives, and other elements that are not typically found in your pantry or in your kitchen. And they are often made from substances that are extracted from foods and recombined rather than containing whole foods themselves. Often they're talked about as foods that if you were to go into your pantry or your kitchen, you would not find them. Various degrees, of course, of processing. Foods, of course, are those where you kind of pick and eat them. You can think about whole fruits and vegetables. You could think about entirely plain, unsweetened yogurt, uncooked grains, fresh fish, minimally processed foods. Things like canned vegetables or frozen fruits or vegetables. Pasteurized milk. Pasteurization is a process. Then there are highly processed foods. Examples of highly processed foods include breakfast cereals, flavored yogurts, salted or flavor added nuts, and processed cheese. And then there are the ultra processed foods. And these foods fall into several different categories. Beverages, think sodas, think energy drinks, think sweetened coffee drinks. Snacks, potato chips, candy bars, packaged cookies, packaged crackers, meat products, packaged meats like hot dogs or nuggets or sausages, and ready-to-eat meals. Anything you find basically in the freezer aisle that comes packaged and looks like a meal that you could prepare, but which you just simply take out and reheat. There also are a lot of breakfast foods that are ultra-processed foods. These are highly sweetened cereals, flavored pastries, and even granola bars. So what are some of the key points when we're looking at ultra-processed foods? They often contain added sugars, salts, unhealthy fats, and artificial additives. They are highly manufactured. They are made using highly industrial processes, things that you could not recreate in your own kitchen. And a lot of these ultra-processed foods have been linked to potential health concerns. A number of different studies have linked overconsumption of these foods to things like obesity and weight gain, heart disease, cancers, you name it. So let's talk about this study specifically. This study has looked at how different types of ultra-processed foods are impacting individuals' eating behaviors. Now, this study is small. It contains just 36 individuals, but these 36 people have been living in a highly controlled environment where their diet is highly controlled, and the amount of data that they are collecting on them is extremely detailed. I want to talk about the specifics of the diets these individuals are consuming in case you really are interested and you want to know more. So all of the individuals in the study began by eating a minimally processed diet, a diet that contained things like plain oatmeal with strawberries and walnuts. And then for the other weeks of the study, they get a version of an ultra-processed diet, different versions of an ultra-processed diet. In one, the meals are energy dense, similar to the minimally processed diet, but contain all kinds of additives, added sugar, added fat, added protein. And most of the calories in this particular diet are coming from hard to resist, hyperpalatable foods. In a second ultra-processed diet, meals are energy dense, but they contain fewer calories that come from those really hard to resist foods. And in the third diet, these meals were not necessarily energy dense, and they were not necessarily hard to resist. Now, the key to all of this is that these diets contain equal amounts of calories, fat, sugar, sodium, and fiber. And what they're reporting on right now, because the study isn't finished until the end of 2025, are the interim results of this study. And this is what they are finding. Participants reported in all of the diets, participants reported feeling equally full. It didn't matter what kind of diet they were eating, they all said, yeah, I feel full. But when they were on the energy-dense diet with foods such as honey roasted peanuts, they ate 1,000 calories more than they did when they were on that diet, when that same individual was on that diet where they ate plain oatmeal and strawberries and walnuts. 1,000 more calories per day. Now, not all of the ultra-processed foods, though, had such dramatic calorie differences. So when people were on the ultra-processed diet that was neither energy-dense nor hyperpalatable, they only consumed 170 calories more per day compared to the diet, that initial diet, oatmeal, strawberries, walnuts. But what does this mean for you on a day-to-day basis? Making better food choices doesn't mean overhauling your pantry overnight or avoiding all convenience foods. That is a difficult task and nearly impossible if you're anything like me. But I do want to do better and a little bit better every day. And so instead, let's talk about some small and intentional shifts that we can make each day, every day, for ourselves and for our family. Here are a few ideas. Okay, number one, read the labels. I know this takes time, but it can be worth it. When you're at the grocery store and you're comparing two different items, take a moment to scan the ingredient list. Look for foods that have fewer ingredients and are ingredients that you recognize. If there is something on that list that you don't recognize, that is a hint that it is processed, of course. And many of the things that are in the center aisle of those grocery stores, they are processed in some way, shape, or form. If you can compare two different items and you see one that has a shorter list with more ingredients that you understand, that you recognize, that is the option to go for. And it's not always that those options are the expensive name brand items. Often these days, generic brands are providing options that have fewer ingredients, that are more recognizable, and that might be the better choice. When it comes to snacks, think about choosing nutrient-dense options instead of those that you might typically go to that are highly processed. So stock up on things like nuts or seeds or dried fruits, those that don't have added sugar, or minimally processed whole grain crackers that you can pair with something like hummus or cheeses. Options make excellent choices for minimally processed alternatives. Remember that not all convenience foods are bad. Canned vegetables, frozen fruit, canned fruit even, that is in juice or water. These are all quick and nutritious options that are better choices than something like those ultra-processed cookies and chips. Here's another key piece to all of this. Don't stress out about doing this perfectly. Again, we are trying to find opportunities to make small changes, small steps that will add up and can add up to two things. One, helping you to continue to make these positive changes in your life. And two, giving you the practice of choosing less processed items and less processed options. Number 4 is to think about the pairing of foods. So if you are serving a box of macaroni and cheese, rather than pairing it with another highly processed, say, chicken nuggets, try serving it with a side of fresh fruit or fresh vegetables. So think about how often we're pairing or eating those ultra-processed or highly processed foods in combination, and try to eliminate the number of times we serve them all together. Okay, tip number 5, there are lots of options for foods that we rely on. I rely on a lot. Think peanut butter. that is much more simply processed and has fewer ingredients. Think natural peanut butter as opposed to something like a Skippy or a Jif, which has added oils, added salt, and added sugars. There's another thing. Bring your kids into this process, especially if they're a little bit older. Get them involved in understanding why you're reading labels. Teach them what it is that you're doing. Talk to them about these choices. Again, this isn't about labeling foods as good or bad, but explaining to them why you are being as thoughtful about things as you are, and empowering them to make that decision for themselves as well. This is another great opportunity to talk to them about how they feel when they're eating foods. How do you feel when you finish a highly processed, ultra processed meal versus one that is more minimally processed, is less highly processed? How do you feel? How do they feel? Invite them to really pay attention to this. All of this will help you and your kids become more mindful eaters and make decisions that are right for your bodies. Looking for more resources, I will link to those below. I have a few other posts where I have talked about how to use convenience foods in a really intentional and thoughtful way, and about the role that ultra-processed foods play in our daily diets and their connections to health. So again, I will link to those below. Remember, this isn't about entirely eliminating convenience foods, or the idea that you can get dinner on the table in a reasonable amount of time. It is really about making sure that you are making the choices and the decisions that work for you and your family and your personal situation. That is all well and good, but it's also very theoretical. So why don't you come into my pantry and let's have a look at what this looks like for me in practice.
Hey, here it is, the sneak peek into my pantry, starting with the infamous snack drawer. Yes, I do buy highly processed snacks, as you can clearly see. We even keep meat sticks around. When I buy these, I do choose Chomps, which is a brand that's a bit more expensive but offers a shorter, higher quality ingredient list. We also keep several different kinds of crackers at any given time. Some of these have quite short ingredient lists, like these Triscuits. And others today we happen to have on hand, what do we have here? Ritz crackers. These have a much longer ingredient list, but Ritz are not a staple for us. It's the same with chips. I make an effort on both of these to rotate brands and varieties so we don't fall in the habit of eating the same ones. All right, I keep lots of jars of unprocessed or minimally processed nuts, but sometimes we do get those highly processed, ultra processed flavored ones. We keep a lot of whole foods in here too, staples like potatoes and onions. We have various kinds of grains and no sugar added dried fruit. We also keep this stocked with condiments, with different kinds of canned beans and vegetables that can be used, as well as a mix of different kinds of oils and vinegars, and a lot of different kinds of natural nut butters. Creamy peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter. What I love about these is that they do not have added oils or sugar. So it's just ground up. In this case, what do we have here? This is just almonds.
Are you ready to put all of this to action? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to just take 5 minutes and look through some of the items in your pantry. Look at those ingredient lists. Understand what is in the foods that you typically bring into your house. And the next time you go grocery shopping, choose one item, one snack, one cracker, one cereal, one something that you can look for an alternative that has fewer ingredients or that is less processed. Just take a look. Take a moment to do that for one item and see, can I make this switch? And then compare the taste of those two items.